Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Insitu Goes Mobile and Improves Efficiency and Accuracy in the Warehouse. My name is Jade Corey. I'm the Senior Events Manager here at Deltek. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few administrative items. This presentation will take about 30 to 40 minutes, then we'll open it to Q&A. If you have any questions, just type it in the question and answer area of your screen at any time. We will answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the session. Please remember to fill out the short survey at the end of the webinar. All registered attendees will receive an on-demand recording of today's webinar within 24 hours. If you have any technical issues, please use the help icon on the bottom of the console for more information. Joining me today is Debbie White, a part of our product marketing team here at Deltek. Welcome, Debbie.
Good morning, everyone. First thing we're going to start with is taking a look at the agenda. In the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to go over the top supply chain challenges facing companies today, what our options are for managing our inventory, what you can achieve with mobility. We have a guest, Chris from Insitu, who's going to tell us about Insitu's experience with automating their mobile and barcoding system, and about our technology, how to move from paper processes to barcode scanners and tablets, and then for Q&A. Now with that, we're going to start first with some introductions. My name is Deborah White. I am the Senior Product Director for Project Manufacturing and Materials here at Deltek. With me, I'm going to let Chris, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Chris Lorentz, a Business Systems Analyst at Insitu.
And Stan?
Good morning, everyone. Stan Schock, Vice President of Sales for RFgen Software.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and turn the session over, and I believe, Stan, you're going to talk about the top supply chain challenges for us.
Thank you, Debbie. Good morning, everyone. We do appreciate your time this morning. As we look at some of the top supply chain challenges, I think most of them you'll see are familiar to you all. Certainly, tightening regulatory environment is something we see almost in every industry. Whether it's FARs, DFARs, MMAS, or SOX, what we see is really a changing record-keeping requirements that really puts a lot of pressure on IT to both streamline and have accuracy in reporting around any of these requirements. All companies are concerned about whether it's shrinking margins or just maintaining our margins, and we see global competition and other factors that really place a lot of pressure on the operating margins. As we look at leveraging our suppliers, there's obviously some great benefits into having visibility into our supply chain, your suppliers for your supply chain, but really a lack of IT communications and collaboration with those suppliers makes it very difficult to achieve end-to-end visibility. Almost every day you pick up, I would say at least once every couple of weeks anyway, you can pick up a newspaper or a magazine and see some kind of recall. I think this week we had one with, I believe it was Eggos. And when a company experiences a recall, it really requires strong traceability capabilities in order to maintain both my customer loyalty as well as profitability. I've got to have the systems in place and the ability to recall very quickly back into my products. And today what we see in a lot of companies is disparate software and manual processes that impact companies' ability to achieve forward and backward traceability. When we look at most environments, we look at a lot of environments, we see that people are still utilizing paper-based systems. And when you look at a paper-based system for tracking inventory, it's a manual process that creates a lot of inefficiencies. It also makes it very difficult to get real-time visibility in the inventory, and that means managing a lot of things around your operation, whether it's shipping product or moving product or ordering product. What's really needed is a simple solution, a mobile solution to track inventory on a real-time basis. And really that system needs to work very tightly with the existing ERP system, your Costpoint system, and the mobile solution includes both the hardware, the software, and the services in order to complete that mobile operations. With mobility, we look at the industry standards that are published by people like Honeywell, Motorola, and other vendors in that marketplace. What we see that you can achieve is 99% increase in accuracy, a 25% increase in efficiency, 30% increase in productivity, and 80% faster training. That happens because I'm not having people writing information down and other people keying it in, or just in all those things around a manual process that can go wrong and does actually go wrong. The options for managing inventory, we really see three ways people are managing their inventory. And the first one is what most companies, a lot of companies, out of necessity start with. It's a paper-based manual process. It's labor-intensive, and it's inefficient and error-prone, as we said. A lot of companies start this way out of necessity, and sometimes they experience problems that make them look for an automated system that's more efficient. Some operate nicely this way because of their environment. We'll see other companies that will do some in-house development where they'll take some people within the organization where they have some very good IT people, and they'll build out something for the organization. And we see a lot of these projects that start and fail. We see some that work for quite some while, but it's difficult to keep it up to date because there's changes that are made into the ERP system, and usually you see job changes and you see people moving around in the environment, so it's very difficult on a long-term basis to keep an in-house development project. There's also costly and complicated warehouse management solutions, and a warehouse management solution is, for some companies, a great fix. For a lot of others, it's really overkill. It has more functionality than is really needed, expensive to implement, both for purchasing the software, implementing the software, and really to support it as well. It requires a separate business analyst for each product, and it needs to constantly be integrated back into the ERP system. It's not integrated automatically. There is another option out there, and one that we've been working with Deltek with Costpoint for quite some time, and we're here to talk about today. RFgen has been in business since 1983. We've been around a long time. We started with a number of products, some in the accounting side specific to certain industries, but about 23 years ago, we dedicated ourselves to automating operations within distribution centers and warehouses. We are validated, have Deltek validated integration with Costpoint 7.01 and 7.11. As I said, we've been around quite a while, so we do have a number of customers. We've got worldwide about 2,800 implementations. We do a lot of our work with a partner network. It consists of a little over 140 partners, and I think we're actually in 38 countries right now. We are a total solution provider, and that means we provide the software, hardware, and professional services around our product. It also means that we have the in-house expertise around both manufacturing and operations environments, as well as Costpoint itself. This is just a sampling of our customer base. And this is really cross-industry, cross-vertical. You see that we're not limited to a certain industry. We can adapt and have adapted well to all industries. And it's just a sampling cross-industry. Other than the manual process, I mentioned a warehouse management solution as opposed to RFgen. And again, to dig a little deeper into the warehouse management system, it typically consists of both software and hardware and handheld devices or computers. It's a separate system that operates off a separate database. It has a rules-based system, and there's a synchronization that's going on all the time. So I set up my rules in my warehouse management system. I integrate back into the Costpoint system, and there's usually a lag time between what happens when someone hits a key or hits an entry into the system and how it reacts to Costpoint and comes back. But the big thing is, as I said, it does require a business analyst and is very expensive. From an RFgen standpoint, we're a mobile data collection solution for the ERP system or for the Costpoint system. It doesn't require a separate database. We're integrated right back into Deltek. As I said, we've gone through the certification process. It requires no footprint on the ERP system, and it's basically, when you look at what we are, is just an extension of a very good investment you've already made in your Costpoint system. Talk for a moment about what you can do with RFgen. Most people start with RFgen looking inside the four walls and really trying to manage areas such as inventory management, receiving, picking, packing, shipping, quality assurance, time and assurance. These are the wireless mobile data collection items that are real time back into the Costpoint system. I'm saying real time. I'm saying it operates the same through a mobile handheld device, a computer, a forklift mount, or even a voice system, as it reacts the same as if it were a screen, a Costpoint screen that someone was actually typing into. We also operate in a more complex environment where you see people outside of a distribution center or a manufacturing facility. It could be that I have inventory in a remote location, or it could be that I have workers that are out in the field doing jobs. It could be vendor managed inventory. It could be some type of field services, or it could be some type of proof of delivery. But the idea is that I'm not inside the four walls where I have a Wi-Fi. I really need to be able to have more functionality inside the handheld device itself. I need to be able to capture data from the ERP system. As an example, if I'm a field service worker, get my work orders in the morning, go out, perform jobs, use up inventory, whatever I'm doing, and then when I come back, sync back up with the ERP system and have everything validated and updated into the ERP system without errors and without any manual process on the user side. At this point, I would like to turn things over to Chris Lorentz, you met earlier. Chris can talk a little bit about Insitu's experience as they implemented mobility into their warehouses. Chris?
Oh, thank you, Stan. First of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about Insitu. We're a leading manufacturer of unmanned aircraft for defense, commercial, and civil applications. We're an independent subsidiary of Boeing, and we design, develop, and produce high-performance, cost-effective unmanned systems that are deployed around the world. And we're currently using Deltek Costpoint 7.01. And the Deltek, or the Costpoint application for us, has been an excellent project-based tool that we've been able to use flexibly and creatively. It's enabled our business model to change over time from a service focus to a service plus engineering through production in a very short period of time. It supports a maturing organization from a custom shop to a more formal production standardization process, and it drives scalability involved with model change. So, as you know, business changes all the time, and it's tough to find a solution to keep up with it. And we found that Costpoint does do that for us. Our challenge was we were having increased transaction volumes in the warehouse due to our growth. One of the huge ones was our heavy reliance on manual data entry processes when automation was not available, and for especially receiving, part location, transfers, kitting, sales orders, and cycle count. And accuracy was just huge. That was our primary focus. And we needed a user-friendly solution that would be flexible, reliable, and integrate the cost point. And this reduced our maintenance of data collection in the system. So our previous system was unreliable, so it also had additional maintenance. That's just one of the reasons why we were looking at RFgen, because it integrated with Costpoint. Other systems, you have that extra maintenance that you have to take care of, the data collection system separately from Costpoint. So it was important for us that it integrates seamlessly with Costpoint. The RFgen suite has the pre-built middleware transactions right out of the box, and they were very reliable. We can't say enough about that because that was extremely important. In addition to that, there's also traceability, so that when you scan a transaction, you can tell it comes from the scanner versus separate entry, separate manual entry through Costpoint itself, and you can separate out any concerns between the two. And RFgen sample transaction screens are optimized for customization. So when we worked with RFgen, they showed us the original, the screens, and then we were able to adjust them according to the way we work, and that was outstanding because we all work a little differently. When we started the process with RFgen, there was an on-site visit called the Business Analysis Workshop, and that took place for over 2 or 3 days. So we were able to tease out all of the requirements up front and have a visual on what the screen would look like. And this was huge in terms of our users because, as many of you probably know, it's hard to get all of the requirements without your business users actually seeing what's going on. And what would the screen look like? How would it flow? That kind of thing. And on top of that, an additional value add was the process automation experience that both the RFgen team and the application itself added to the project and the functionality of inventory movement. For example, today, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but today, one of the things we learned was, if you're going down the same aisles in a specific order, wouldn't it make sense to have multiple transactions at hand, so that you're pulling more than one part from the same location, where you're pulling the same part, but for multiple transactions as you're going down the aisle, and that saves labor. And then RFgen provided a dedicated project team with really outstanding follow-up. And I can't say enough about that because, you do have challenges in a project. That's simply normal. And the team was there working with us hand in hand to work through all of those challenges. Some of the results we had improved inventory control for more efficient and accurate movement of materials and parts. Again, it's in the aisle order, able to pull more than one parts for more than one MO or SO. Mobilized data collection. It replaced the warehouse manual processes. It replaced the manual warehouse processes, so people didn't have to go back to their desk and do, Costpoint data entry because they're working off reports. It saved labor by reducing the trips to the warehouse to fulfill manufacturing orders. It sped up the process for issuing products to sales orders. In fact, I want to comment on this just a little bit. When we released in 2 phases, the first phase, it was so efficient that we added to the project because another area in terms of printing shipping labels was too slow. So we actually had, things were working so well in the shipping area that we paused this process to speed up that area, and you can't say enough about that. Then finally, we were able to transfer inventory between locations by scanning alone. And again, that saves a trip back to the desk. It enabled warehouse workers to print barcode labels easily to the centralized printer of choice. And this was, it allowed selectability of your nearest printer as opposed to just one printer, and of course, we had the capability to actually have mobile printers as well. The improved inventory count process to get more accurate counts and location information. And then we also added being able to find parts by location in addition to the part number before making a trip to the shelf. So if you want to know what's on the shelf, you can look it up by the location and see what's there and how many you have of it. And you're not going blind. Then it saved time with warehouse changes by moving and swapping parts in one location to another as a group. Instead of doing moving parts one at a time from one location to another, you can do a mass move very similar to what you can do in Costpoint. And then finally, and this was a huge savings, there's no intermediate need for a business administrator to administer the RFgen application to correct errors. And this is because all of your transaction information is in Costpoint. So you're not adding costs to your warehouse system through labor by having a separate application that you have to correct errors on and be monitoring all the time. Okay.
So at this point, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about the technology behind Costpoint and RFgen. Now, Deltek, as you know, offers a wide range of products built for government contractors and any project-oriented business. And our main goal is to really align your people, your processes, and your tools out of the box. That kind of leads into how we ended up choosing RFgen as our partner to offer mobile solutions for the shop floor and fixed assets and for the inventory modules. With our Costpoint web product, we allow you to use XML and web services to be able to pass data back and forth to Costpoint, which made it a lot easier for our integrations. Then in the mid-2000s, we were having a lot of requests from a lot of different clients to help automate. We wanted to be able to automate the shop floor, automate inventory, automate fixed asset moves, and really be able to ensure that data was being entered with integrity, that we weren't making mistakes to inventory by fat-fingering transactions in. Was there a more seamless way to ensure the proper serial numbers were being collected? And this is very important when you deal with a lot of aerospace and defense clients. So we actually ended up choosing RFgen as our partner, and we have worked with them over the years with developing the standard interfaces that they offer today out of the box for our Costpoint clients. Stan, with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk a little bit about RFgen Mobile.
Thank you, Debbie. We talked about the RFgen Mobile Foundations for Costpoint. Really, there's a number of items that make up the product. First thing you'll see is that we do have a mobile application development platform. And you heard Chris talk a little bit about that. We are tightly integrated back to Deltek Costpoint. We have, as Chris mentioned, a number of pre-written out-of-the-box transactions. I'll talk about more in just a moment, but these are items that are already built that can be adjusted, as she said, because Not everybody does business exactly the same way. And the way those adjustments are made is through our mobile development studio. We have a very intuitive, easy to easily it's a palette that people can take and drag and drop and make changes to existing transactions very easily. And we support many ways of data capture, whether it's real time, as I mentioned, which is what you'll see in most operations that are DC operations or manufacturing operations, or if it's, as I mentioned, operations where I do need to go outside the four walls and run in more of a batch type environment. This is a visual of how we fit in the scheme of things with Costpoint. And if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see the Costpoint ERP system. On the right-hand side, you'll see the different devices that you might connect back to or you might want to be able to utilize based on what the user's environment is. So you may have a handheld device, some type of a gun. You could have a voice system. You could have a PC. You could have some type of a wedge scanner that's attached to a PC, or Android, iOS device, forklift. It really doesn't matter. Again, people's environments are different. We have some people that work in environments where they're working below zero environments, or in very heavy environments where it's they could be abusive to equipment, so they need more heavy duty equipment. Some people need to be able to read barcodes from a greater distance, but any type of device we can run off those devices. Now, RFgen sits in the middle, and all we're doing is taking a command from that device, and we are constantly validating and updating Costpoint using the business logic of Costpoint. And as I said, it's a constant validation and integration that goes on, and we are constantly working with Costpoint to make sure that we stay up with the latest versions. When you look at a Costpoint screen, what you'll see sometimes is, again, because people work so differently, you'll see that the screen can't be designed for everybody every time the way they need it. So you may have people that are actually going from putting some information into a field and then skipping through a couple of fields and putting some other information, depending on what their job is. What RFgen actually does is it takes the data that someone needs for their particular job. It puts that data on a handheld device or on some type of a mobile device in the order that they need it. So if I'm someone who's working in a shipping department, as Chris was talking about, or someone in receiving, I may not need to see the information that is completely on that screen, or based on the way that my workflow is, I may need to see it differently than somebody who has a similar job at a different company. So that data is presented to them in the fashion that they want, and based on their job, based on their job description, and based on their job workflow. And again, that data, when it's sent up to the ERP system, when it arrives through RFgen to Costpoint, Costpoint doesn't know and doesn't care, because of the tight integration we've got with Costpoint, whether that's coming from someone sitting at a Costpoint screen, or whether someone who's utilizing a device like you see on the display here. We mentioned the pre-built mobile application. So I won't read all of these, but there are applications that are already built around inventory management, PO processing, and manufacturing. So these are transactions that you can take as an example, Costpoint 7.1.1. You could take today, install the RFgen product with Costpoint. In a matter of an hour, you could be up and running these transactions. The difference comes in, as Chris said, and we talked about a little bit, is that you might work differently than someone else. So either RFgen, and about half the time our customers do this as well, can take our existing transactions utilizing that mobile development studio I talked about earlier, can make changes. And those changes could be something where I mentioned a palette that I'm working from in a mobile development environment. where I can pull buttons in or a signature captured, or I can change the whole flow of the transaction very, very simply. But you can change your existing transactions or build completely new transactions based on your requirements. And this is something we'll see the number of transactions continue to grow as we work with customers and we build out new transactions. Those transactions will be made available to the RFgen-Costpoint customers. Because we have the pre-built transactions and our connectivity is certified and done in an environment the way that Costpoint asks us to, and because the Mobile Development Studio, we're implemented in weeks, not months. One of the hardest things about implementing software is when you have to stop your operations and take any length of time to implement software and get it up and running. All these things I mentioned make it much simpler to implement. There's no footprint or any modifications onto the ERP system or onto Costpoint. We're not getting in and modifying that ERP system. It's very simply, as I said, an extension of the ERP system with open source, with the development platform, using a very simple scripting language, reusable objects, and again, deploys to all type of devices out there. We also offer a couple of ways of acquiring RFgen. A lot of people want to typically buy software the way that they normally do, which is I'll purchase the software, I'll implement it at my location, and I'll just run it from here. It's my software, I want to use it. Sometimes we see people that say, for various reasons, I don't want to own the software. My business is changing. I don't want to make that kind of commitment. I want to have more of a SaaS type offering. And we do have a SaaS offering that is an on-site license. So we're not asking customers to, and especially in this environment, to go into a cloud. We understand there are security issues that could be of concern. So this is an on-site SaaS, which simply says I'm not buying the software, I'm buying the rights to use the software. And it does prevent me from having a capital expenditure. I simply make annual payments, and in a lot of cases, it minimizes what the IT staff has to do. So based on what individual companies' requirements are, we evaluate their requirements. We make recommendations, and of course, the software has to add value back, either in minimizing errors, increasing productivity, risk mitigation, all those things we talked about with regulations and pressure, margin pressures, etc. With that, let me turn it back over to Debbie. I think she wants to open it for questions.
Thank you, Stan. And as you can see by the screen, it has both RFgen's contact information and my contact information here at Deltek if you have any further questions. And it looks like we do have one question out here. Stan, this one is actually for you. And the question is, when looking at a barcoding solution for your warehouse, does RFgen provide suggestions on what type of hardware or scanners should be used?
Absolutely. I meant to talk a little bit in greater detail about that as I was talking about the devices and the one screen that showed the different devices. But we see people that are working, again, we've got companies that have operations where they're working in freezer environments. So you need a completely different device as opposed to someone else that might need a forklift mount. One of the things we do when we engage with a company is the first process, really have an initial conversation, understand what do you think that what are you trying to accomplish, what do you think the benefits would be. Then we talk about how we might be able to address those. But before we actually get to a point where we're doing business together, we want to come out on site. We want to see your environment. We'll make recommendations if we can about what we see, because we do have very, very experienced people from the standpoint of inventory management and warehouse operations. but again, whether someone is sitting in an environment where they need to read a barcode from 40 feet away, completely different scanning device, as opposed to someone else who's maybe the barcode is right there 2 or 3 feet away. Other people might be able to use based on the fact that the worker is not mobile, the worker is always at this particular station, work is being brought to them. They do have a PC there. Maybe we don't need to get a mobile device there. Maybe what we need to do is put a wedge device. It's just a scanner device that plugs right into the PC, very inexpensive device. It's usually about $70, $80, and that takes the place of a more mobile device, but it is what that particular user needs. It still eliminates them having to type information in.
Thank you, Stan. And with that, I think that is our last question today. Just wanted to end our webcast today with inviting everyone on the call to join INSIGHT 2016 this year. It's going to be at the Gaylord Hotel at the National Harbor, and we look forward to seeing you there. And with that, Jay, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Debbie, and thank you, Stan and Chris, for joining us today on this webinar. This does conclude the webinar today. Unanswered questions will be addressed offline. We would like to remind you to fill out the short survey you'll receive after the webinar ends. Just as a reminder, you will receive an on-demand recording of today's webinar within 24 hours. Thank you for joining us today, and please visit www.com/events for more upcoming Deltek events.